And welcome to Take Charge Tuesday. Very excited to be with you here today and to chat about the big topics. We're going after the big guns here, and and I really want to make sure that you guys are getting all of the things that you need to know about doing an e-commerce business. So let's talk about it. There are several things. Let me make sure I'm here and y'all can see me. There we go. Hi. It is a pleasure, as I said already, to be here and hang out with y'all. If you are here live with me, feel free to shout me a holler in the chat. I love seeing you all chat with me. I think I've mentioned before, if you've been here before, that I use a software called Restream. And that software lets me see when people are watching, but it is not 100% accurate. So often it will say one thing and then other people will start talking in the chat, and I'm like, oh well, there's more people than that says. So go ahead and chat with me. I'm always down to say hi and all that while we are live. So today's topic is about e-commerce and selling online. For the most part, I think that my experience and my experience working as a consultant and working with people who have online businesses is that there's a high tendency towards not understanding all of the different ways that you can sell your products online. And I think that there are a lot of people who wait because they're like, but Lindsay, I can't afford, and then fill in the blank type of store. So maybe they think they can't afford Shopify because they know someone who has a Shopify store that has 400 products and that runs extensions for wholesale and are using QuickBooks and all that stuff. Like there's all of these things, and that person is like, well, my Shopify costs this much money, but that is including like plugins and things like that. And for the most part, a lot of tools are way less expensive than you think, and Shopify is not the only answer on top of that. And having your own e-commerce shop doesn't have to start with a full out website build. Matter of fact, I got a question yesterday from someone who is looking to build a site for a client. And that person was saying, what are the options that are available? Are we still in a WooCommerce world? Are we still in a Shopify only world? Like, what are the options that are available? And one of the, hi, see, there's someone chatting with me. It's nice to see you. But yeah, they were asking the question, and I'm like, one of the best things about it is that there's so many options. You choose whatever you're going to choose and whatever works best for you and whatever's going to be within that client's budget. And then there's a bunch of add-ons and other fun things that you can do that are going to help you go further faster. So I want to talk about one very specific thing that people don't realize is available because it's brand new. And I'm not going to say brand new, but it's pretty darn new. And because it is new, I want to make sure that we all understand and know what it is. And we can talk about a bunch of other stuff. I actually have a workshop in 23 minutes or 22 minutes where I'm going to be talking all about the multiple levels of e-commerce that you can have, including all of the Google options. So one of them that I want us to, as people who have e-commerce shops and who are thinking about e-commerce shops, there is one thing that you can fully take advantage of that is not really any additional money, but it requires you do a few extra steps in order to take care of it or take advantage of it. And that is Google Lens. So hey, see, now there are people watching. You guys are just on LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't show me when there are people watching. So hi, everyone. And so the Google Lens. Now, I love Google Lens for the fact that most people don't even know it is a thing. So I'll keep it simple, give my stupid story that I always tell about Google Lens. I was in Canada with my family, and we dropped down in the middle of Toronto, and we wanted somewhere to go that was quick just to get our feet wet in Toronto. And so we just pulled into a parking garage, not realizing that we were pulling into a mall. And so we pulled into this garage, and like there's this like 4-story mall. We go into the mall and we see like it's just a regular mall in the middle of a downtown in Canada. We see a line, and it's a really long line, and there's these beefy security guards, and then there's an owl, and there's like nothing clear at all about what's happening here except for that there's a line of people trying to get into the store. This is pre-COVID, so there was no reason for this. In our minds we're like, why are the people in the middle of the day? This is like 2:30 in the afternoon, so it's not a club or anything. There's no food. I'm like, what is happening here? And then you look in the store because we were upstairs from the store, or were we downstairs? We were at an angle. So when you looked up, you could look into the store and see there was no one in there except for like 3 people. And I'm like, there's a line and there's only 3 people. What is happening here? And so Eric pulls out his phone and does a Google Lens search. Now, if you've never done this before, it is quite possibly one of the most amazing things on the planet, is that if you have this enabled on your phone, which we're not an iPhone family. So I don't know about what you iPhone people can do. I know on Androids, he was probably using a Google Pixel at the time, because we've been a Google Pixels for the last several phones that we've had. And I think that he pulled out his Google Pixel and just aimed the camera at the owl. And because, I mean, how do you ask the internet? How do you ask Google what this is if you don't know what it is and it's a visual thing? And so Google Lens was his way of asking, what is this? Like, what is this? And what we found out is that that owl is the representative for Drake, the rapper. I know his real name, I just can't think of it right now. For Drake, who is Canadian and has a big presence in Canada. He has a clothing brand, and that clothing brand's icon or logo is the owl. And so when we pulled this owl up in Google Lens, it immediately was like, oh, that's Drake's new store. It launched that day, and those people were in line to buy products from him. And so I want us to think, because back then, the thing that is available now was not available. The product Google Lens was available, but this thing that Google Lens does now was not available. And what is that? Well, the thing that it does now is that if you aim your camera at something and now you don't have to take a picture, but if you aim it at something using your Google search, so first of all, now it's in your search bar, and I probably won't be able to show it. Oh, yes, I can. It's right there. So that little thing there, that is your Google Lens search. It was fuzzy because my camera doesn't want to focus on it. But if you click that or tap on that little button there and you point your camera at something, if it is a product, if it is a thing that has products that people can buy as it relates to that thing, it will tell you what the thing is that you're pointing your camera at, but it will also give you options for purchasing your own version of that thing. Now, why is this useful? So imagine that you sell hats and you are interested in getting more people to buy your hats, but a lot of people, I think now, style is what it is. People are like at a big box store and they might see something and go, I don't necessarily want to buy it here. But what they can do is actually scan their phone or use their phone to look that image of a hat up. And if there are other people who are selling that hat online and they have enabled the ability for themselves to get found, which we can talk about how to do that in a second, they will get found, and there will be a little price tag in the bottom corner that will tell you how much that product is at that person's e-commerce store. So if you are at a festival or if you're out in the world and you see something that you like and you're like, whoa, I love that dress, you can literally search that dress using Google Lens and see if you can buy it somewhere, instead of just going, wow, those shoes are fantastic. I love them on her. You can be like, those shoes are fantastic. I love them on her and I want them on me, but I am too shy to go and ask that strange person where she got her shoes from. You can ask Google, where did this person get their shoes from, essentially, and it will tell you all the options of places where you can buy those shoes. Now, this is going to become a thing that people do all the time. It is rolling out this year. I'm not sure how long it has been available. I can tell you it has not been a long time. It is one of the newer features, and this is amazing if you have an e-commerce store. But this does not work if you don't have an e-commerce store. It doesn't matter essentially what kind of e-commerce store, because the thing that you are enabling when you are using that feature is the Google Merchant account. So if you have an e-commerce store, one of the easiest things for you to do is to have your products be in the Google Merchant account, or have a Google Merchant account. And when you have your products in that, that is how they become searchable as an image. So if you have the picture of the image, if you have a picture of the image itself, if you have the description and all of that jazz with the pricing, everything that you essentially would have if you have an e-commerce store, if you have those things enabled in your Google Merchant Center, then your products will now be searchable via Google Lens. That is amazing. And I want more and more people to start telling me that they got customers via this way, because I know that it is going to start happening. Now, one of the other things that I'll tell y'all about, I'm not going to go through all of them because there is a list and we are doing a whole workshop on it. But one of the things that I absolutely love, that I have heard clients say over and over and over again, and people still dismiss it to this day, it's completely free and it doesn't require you have a e-commerce store, and that is your Google Business Profile. So your Google Business Profile does not require you have an e-commerce store. You do need some method of selling things online, but that can include having a single one-off product that you sell using any number of software. It could actually like any number of software. There's plenty of them that you can have a one-off product that you're selling, Stripe, PayPal, lots and lots of options. And so you can have your one-off product and list it on your Google Business Profile. When you have a Google Business Profile, you have the ability to list items on your profile for sale. And if you are a business that runs events, especially considering that Google Business Profiles are for local location-based type businesses, if you are running events, one of the best things ever is that with your Google Business Profile, you can list your event on the Google Business Profile and essentially send people to your registration page right there from the event. If you have a business where you are doing counseling or consulting and people are going to book and pay, you can have your book and pay available right there on your Google Business Profile. Again, too often we think that these things are complicated, and they're not. Like, you do not need a whole lot of tools and a whole lot of things in order to get real fancy. And I love that for us as small business owners. We do not need all of the things that can you. I've been in business for over 10 years. Actually been in business now for like 13 years, almost 13 years. And I tell you what, the amount of time, energy, and effort it took 13 years ago to have an e-commerce store. An e-commerce store 13 years ago. 13 years was not that long ago. It was still in the tens. It wasn't in the 20s yet. But it was still in the tens, but or the zeros, I guess. But man, the amount of effort and money that went into getting found, the amount of heavy lifting for search engine optimization that you had to do, the amount of competition because the things that you could do were so scarce and so expensive that even when people were doing them, that was kind of highly competitive within doing them. The number of tools that were available were few and far in between, and they required coding. There was lots of requirements there. And that was just 13, 12 years ago. Now, even since 5 years ago, or since 3 years ago, just the changes that have happened since COVID have made it so that if you have an e-commerce, if you have something that you want to sell online, if you have a product, if you have a product idea, the ability for you to get that into the hands of people is so easy now, and for you to do it in a way that is going to be fully inclusive. It used to be that you could not compete with David's Bridal if you had a bridal shop. Now you can, because you can use Google Shopping tab, you can use Google Shopping ads, you can use Google Lens, you can use all of these tools that are available with one or two integrations into whatever e-commerce platform you are already using. Whether it's Wix, which has a fantastic e-commerce platform that costs you literally no extra dollars, and Wix is like $200 per year for the entire platform. It is amazing what is available. Back then, it would have cost $200 just to have a consultation about which software somebody was going to charge you $15,000 to just think about building. And now it's just the world is flat, and all of this is available to any and all of us who want it. And it is amazing. So I've said a lot, but I want to take the next couple of minutes to just talk about some of the other options. I mentioned them kind of in passing, but there's a lot of options. I'm going to go over them in the workshop in a few minutes. But I want to just, if you aren't able to come to the workshop, I want you to still have a really good idea of what is available for you. So you have your e-commerce store, which can be on any platform that you have available. And fortunately, if you have an e-commerce store and a Google business profile, these things kind of work really hand in hand. Once you have your e-commerce store, this is not just going to be a Google thing. Once you have an e-commerce store, you can connect your e-commerce store to Pinterest. Pinterest is a search engine. Pinterest also delivers up content to Google. So if you want people to find you and find your products on Pinterest and potentially find your products on Google, having those bases covered on Pinterest is a fantastic option. In addition to Pinterest, you can also have your products listed on Facebook. Once you have an e-commerce store, you can connect your e-commerce store to Facebook and then have a Facebook shop. Once you've connected a Facebook shop, or once you have set up your Facebook shop, as long as your Facebook account and your Instagram account, which has to be an Instagram business account, are set up, then you can have an Instagram business shop. And Instagram shops are booming right now. People will tell you that they're not. Those people are just jealous of everybody else. So your Instagram shops are booming right now. If you have something that you are trying to sell, having these things all connected is, let's say, a matter of course. You don't necessarily want to try and connect them all in one day because there is literally no reason to do that. The world is not ending tomorrow. What you do want to do is plan it out and say, okay, I'm going to get all my products into my e-commerce store, whether it's Wix or Shopify or BigCommerce or WooCommerce or whatever you're using. You're going to get your e-commerce set up. You're going to label your products appropriately, label them with keywords that are relevant to the product and to the customer. Make sure that you have descriptions that are accurate. Make sure that you have a good count on your inventory, because every single one of these systems requires inventory management, every single one of them. And then the first thing I'm going to suggest you do is, once you have that set up, then you want to set up your Google Merchant account. The reason why you set everything up with your e-commerce shop first is because then you will have all that stuff I talked about. You'll have your SKUs set. You'll have your descriptions, your product titles, your pictures. All those things will be done. Your pricing, everything will be done. Your inventory will be done. All of that will be arranged and organized. And depending on the e-commerce shop that you have or the software you have, a lot of times the ability to go from the shop to something like the Google Merchant Center is like that. Like once you have it set up, it just feeds that information automatically. But even if it doesn't feed the information automatically, with most systems, you can download that information into a spreadsheet, and then you can take that spreadsheet and upload it into Google. And so now you will have your information that was in your e-commerce shop just kind of automatically populated into your Google Merchant account. Now, I mentioned that for the Google Merchant account, that will give you access to Google Shopping, Google Shopping Ads, Google Lens, which is what I was just talking about. It'll give you access to a lot of those things. All of those things become available once you do the Google Merchant account. Now, if you want to do all the other things like the Facebook and the Pinterest and things like that, for the most part, you just have to look for the plugin. So you go over to Pinterest and you say you want to connect your e-commerce site, or you Google your site, your whatever the site host is. So if it's EasyWid or whatever it's going to be, there's so many options out there. You Google that site creator, that site host, and you say connect to Pinterest, and it will give you an article, usually a very helpful help article that will tell you exactly how to get your products from your product account, your merchant account, into Pinterest with a few clicks of a button. It is very rare that is going to require you upload everything manually as if you hadn't done it in the first place. So that's the beautiful thing. It usually is just a couple clicks of the button. Now, with Facebook, it is almost as easy as it is with Google. So if you have a merchant account, usually you will just be able to translate that information directly with a couple clicks of a button. But if you are not, that same spreadsheet that you use to upload your content into Google, you can now take that same spreadsheet and use it to upload your content into Facebook. So now you are getting that in there in multiple ways. But as easy as I'm making it sound, I am honestly telling you, do not be tempted to try to do this all at once, because if you run into a snag, which you inevitably will, then it will be extremely frustrating, and nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. So do not frustrate yourself, and all that. Just do one thing at a time. So maybe dedicate a couple of weeks to the process of getting your e-commerce set up across multiple platforms. If it takes less time than a couple of weeks, great. But if it does take a couple of weeks, you have saved yourself some frustration, okay? So, like I said, I do have a workshop coming up in 5 minutes, 4 minutes now. I gotta go. I got a workshop coming up. So, join me, and we're gonna talk about this in just a minute. So, I'm going to, type this into the chat. There is a link that is about to pop into the chat if you are interested in just, learning more about this and seeing what I mean by how Google Lens works, then join me at that link that is in the chat. And I will see you in a few minutes. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Every one of you who watches and everyone who watches afterwards, which I know there is an entire hashtag replay group of people. Feel free to put that in there when you're watching it later. Everybody wants to know. And so that is it for today. I've got to go. I've got a workshop starting in a few minutes. I will talk to you later. Bye, everyone.